What's up guys, Meredith with AmericanTrucks.com, and today we are checking out the Rough Country 3.5-inch suspension lift kit with M1 struts and rear M1 monotube shocks fitting all 2019 and newer Silverado 1500s with the rear multi-leaf pack spring. I do want to note that this will not fit the Silverados with the adaptive ride control, and it excludes the diesel and the Trail Boss models. However, if your truck fits the mold and you want some more height to your Silverado, then the entry-level size kit, while also replacing some worn out suspension components, this kit will bring that to the table while also not completely draining your wallet. This offers a solid lift height to fit up to a 33-inch tire and establish a more aggressive presence with the truck, whether you're looking for a more defined and level look to your Silverado or you want some better performance for off-road driving, hauling, or towing with your truck. With the included components and Rough Country's upgraded monotube struts and shocks, this will maintain good drivability while increasing the performance and responsiveness that you have in the driver's seat. Now, while this will have a gas-charged construction and feel stiffer compared to stock, it will reduce the body roll on road for a more controlled experience, eliminate bottoming out on those bigger bumps, and keep the rear supported for the heavier towing and hauling situations. It also will adapt well to any terrain, from cruising on the highway to hitting an uneven path, while remaining responsive and comfortable thanks to the digressive valving. While the struts and the lift blocks will add that height and the shocks and struts will help out with drivability, there are other components like longer shocks and correctly angled control arms, as well as a sway bar drop bracket, which will craft the comfort and extend the lifespan due to the corrected geometry after throwing everything off. Now, I do want to note that wheel offset and width is important to consider if you are installing 33s, as some wider widths and more aggressive negative offsets will require trimming, so just keep that in mind. The big main components of this lift kit are the struts and the shocks. Each will have a large steel body for effective heat dissipation to keep the oil cool on the inside and the dampening consistent for a comfortable ride. Now, the steel additionally will be durable to resist any damage on the outside from any rocks, kick-up, obstacles, and they will be zinc plated for good rust resistance, so no matter what kind of terrain or elements that these are seeing, they will hold up. The upper control arms here will be made of a forged aluminum material. These are going to have stronger rubber bushings than factory to reduce any brittleness over time. They will have a stronger ball joint for excessive wear reduction, and the overall setup will be angled correctly to accommodate for the added height, putting your caster back in check, ultimately making alignment adjustments easier. Now, you're also getting a tough plastic 2.5-inch block for the back that sits under the leaf spring. You will have some alignment pins to make sure that these are going to stay in place, and you'll have all of the hardware necessary in order to install that, including steel sway bar drop brackets and all of the bolts and nuts that you'll need. This will cost you around $1,300 and will be right in the middle of the price spectrum for this general lift height. Now, what I do like about this kit is that you're getting a fully inclusive suspension kit here at a higher lift height, and it's going to maintain pretty good comfort compared to a more minimal or spacer kit that may sacrifice drivability. Now, with that, the suspension lift includes Rough Country's M1 shock line being an upgrade from their more entry-level choices with the monotube construction and the bigger and more intricate build. It also just covers all of your bases for suspension replacement if you're looking for an all-around refresh that includes some suspension geometry correction components and just an all-around upgrade for your suspension without paying a super high price point. Installing this will be tough and a bit lengthy, so I am going to give this a 3 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, taking you about 6 hours or so. With the right tools and right setup, I do recommend either mechanical experience in order to install this or to take your truck to a trusted shop. Now, at this point, we can head over to our shop to check out a step-by-step breakdown if you are curious or you're tackling this job yourself. So that is going to wrap it up for me. Let's go ahead and get into the install.
Tools required for this install include a couple different size impact guns, a ratchet, a hammer, a clip remover tool, 10, 14, 15, 18, and 21 millimeter ratcheting wrenches, 14 and 17 millimeter wrench, a ratchet, an extension, 10, 15, 17, 18, 21, and 22 millimeter sockets, and 10 and 21 millimeter swivel socket, and a pry bar. What's up guys? Today we're installing a lift kit on our Silverado, so let's get started. First thing we're gonna do is remove this 10 millimeter bolt holding in the bracket for our brake line, as well as disconnect our connector right below it. So we'll grab a 10 millimeter socket to pull our bolt out. Then we can pop that bracket out of place. We're gonna throw the bolt back in so we don't lose it. And then for our connector, we're gonna push up on this white tab. And then you can press in on it and disconnect that. Next, we're gonna take a clip remover tool and pop that connector off this bracket. Next, we're gonna remove this bracket on the back of our knuckle. We have another 10 millimeter bolt that we'll grab a 10 millimeter socket to pop out. Pop our bracket out of place and put our bolt back. Next, we can go up to our upper control arm and we have another 10 mil bolt. Next, we can take a 21 mil socket to remove the nut on our tie rod end. And then you can grab a hammer and give the knuckle a couple taps until you pop this ball joint free. And once we have some movement there, you can just give a couple light taps on the end of the stud. And we can just rotate our knuckle, pop that out, and throw our nut back on. Next, we'll take an 18 millimeter socket to remove the nut holding our sway bar end link to our lower control arm. And now you're gonna do that same thing on the other side. And once you have that off, like I already have the other side off, you can get a pry bar and pry up on your sway bar to pop your end link out of place. Next, we can disconnect our upper ball joint. We have an 18 millimeter nut, so I'm gonna grab an 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench to take this off. Now, if your ball joint starts spinning, there is a cutout for a 6 millimeter Allen bit that can go into the bottom to hold that stud in place. We'll just unthread that nut a few threads. And then we can grab a hammer to give the knuckle a couple hits to pop that ball joint free. And then we can fully remove that nut. We'll take a pry bar to pry that up and out of the knuckle. And we can throw our nut back on. Next, we can remove our 2 lower strut bolts. Now, our hardware has been replaced, so I'm using a 17 millimeter wrench with a 16 millimeter socket. However, your hardware might be a different size, but it'll install the same. Now, it's also worth noting that I have a pole jack here to support the weight of the lower control arm so that this doesn't fall forward on us. Next, we can remove our 3 upper strut nuts. First, we have this plastic clip that we're gonna have to pop off of our front left and back stud. I'm gonna take a clip remover tool, pry up on that, pop it off our studs. And then we can grab a 14 millimeter ratcheting wrench to remove our nuts. I'm gonna start on the back one here because it's the hardest to get to. Now, once we have this back nut loosened up, we can just thread it the rest of the way off the stud by hand. And then we can work on our other 2. And once we have the last one, a couple threads off, we can push up on our strut, thread that the rest of the way off by hand. And now we can work on removing our strut. And now with our strut unbolted, I'm gonna lower down our pole jack to lower our lower control arm to give us enough room to get this out. Next, we can remove our upper control arm. We have a 21 millimeter bolt going from the inside out from the strut tower and a 21 millimeter nut. So I'm going to take a 21 millimeter socket on a ratchet and 21 millimeter ratcheting wrench and pop these off. And then you can repeat that whole process on the other side. So now we can install our new upper control arm. We'll get our bolt holes lined up. And then we can thread our nuts on the other side. And then we can take our 21 millimeter socket and 21 millimeter ratcheting wrench to tighten this down. Now we can slide our strut into place. And with that in place, we can thread on our 3 nuts at the top. And we'll just leave those loose for now. Next, we can install our new lower strut hardware. We're gonna go from the top down with our bolts. And then we'll thread our nuts onto the bottom. Now we can grab a 14 millimeter wrench for our bolts and a 15 millimeter socket for our nuts and tighten these down. Now we can go up top and tighten down our upper strut nuts. I'm going to take a 15 millimeter ratcheting wrench to do this. We're going to start with the front 2 to tighten those down so that we can thread the back on and only have to tighten that one a little bit since that one's harder to get to. Now we can reach back and thread on the back one. And now once we have all those nuts tightened down, we can grab that clip and pop that back into place. Next, we can reattach our upper control arm ball joint to the knuckle. So I've got a pry bar. We can get on one of these springs. Pry this down and into place. And then we'll get our new nut and thread that on. And now we can take our 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench to tighten down this nut. Next, we can reinstall our tie rod end into the knuckle. Thread our nut back on and take our 21 mil socket to tighten it down. So now we can start reinstalling all of our brackets and clips. So we're going to start with our upper control arm. We'll thread in our factory bolt and then take our 10 millimeter socket to tighten it down. And now we can move down to our knuckle and reinstall all of those brackets and clips. And then we'll clip this connector back into our bracket. Get the other side, slide it in, and then press this white locking tab down into place. So now last thing we need to do to wrap up the front is to install our sway bar spacers. Now we're gonna remove our bracket. We're gonna slide this into place, reinstall the 2 factory bolts up into the frame, and then we're gonna space our sway bar down, and we have some new hardware to go in the bottom. I'm gonna grab myself a buddy to do the other side while I do this side, since the sway bar is kind of heavy and awkward, and we'll get these installed. So now I've got myself a buddy on the other side, and I'm gonna take a 10mm swivel socket to remove these 2 bolts. And then we can thread those factory bolts back into the holes in the frame. And then we can raise up our sway bar, take our new bolt with a flat washer, put that through, and then get another flat washer and our nut on the other side. And now we can go back and tighten everything down. So I'm gonna tighten the frame bolts first. We're gonna use a 10mm swivel socket on this one. Now the other one's a little harder to get to, so I'm gonna take a 10mm ratcheting wrench for that one. And then for our bolts and nuts, we're gonna take a 17mm socket and wrench to tighten those down. Then you can do that same thing on the other side. And now the last thing we need to do is reinstall our nut onto our end link and take an 18mm socket to tighten it down. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. Now moving on to the rear, the first thing we need to do is remove our shock. We'll grab a 21mm socket and wrench to take that out. Now before we start taking anything apart, you're gonna wanna make sure you have a pole jack or a jack stand supporting your axle. So I've got one here. So we can take a 21mm socket and wrench to remove our bolt. Now we can come to our upper shock mount and take a 21mm socket to remove that bolt. Grab one hand on the shock, make sure it doesn't fall on you. Next we can come to the 4 bolts on our U-nuts and take a 21mm socket to remove these. And then we'll wiggle off our bracket and remove our 2 U-bolts. So now we just need to lower down our axle to get enough space to put our spacer in. Now there's a longer side and a shorter side here. The longer side is going to go towards the back of the truck. So we'll start lowering our pole jack to lower our axle. Now the side with this pin is going down. Slide that in. And you just want to line up your holes. Start raising this back up, straighten it out. And then once that's flush, we can slide in our new U-bolts. And now we can go back under, reinstall our bracket and our new nuts. So now we can slide our bracket onto our new U-bolts. And then we're sliding on our new washer and nut. And now we can take a 22mm socket to tighten these down. I'm gonna go in a crossing pattern here to tighten everything down evenly. Now we can install our new shock. So we'll get that into our upper mount and thread our factory bolt into place. Then we'll just leave that loose for now until we get our bottom mount in place. Now we'll get our bottom shock into the mount, slide our bolt through, thread our nut on the other side. And now we can take a 21mm socket and wrench to tighten that down. And now we'll go back up top and take our 21mm socket to tighten down our top bolt. And then now you can repeat that whole process on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Rough Country 3.5-inch suspension lift kit with M1 struts and rear M1 monotube shocks for your 2019 and newer Silverado 1500 with rear multi-leaf pack springs and without adaptive ride control, excluding diesel and the Trail Boss. Thank you for watching, and for all things Silverado, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.